and if you have a noise level that is mandated by the state or what have you, and you can test to see if that noise exceeded the state level, then you should be able to fine somebody under those circumstances. I would think. Everything is laborious regardless of what we do, because it's going to take time. The police have to be there. It could take 2 hours to do all of this. So, my question becomes, I think, Sean, you mentioned that it didn't appear to be enforceable unless that label was there. And is that correct? I mean, that's what I'm trying to identify. What is enforceable, and then what can we put into the law? I spoke about a Jake brake, okay, and a Jake brake makes an awful lot of noise, or an engine brake, also known for that, makes an extreme noise, okay? It's legal, but towns are able to put ordinances in to restrict it, okay? So if they can do that with an engine brake, then why can't we address the noise issue versus the label issue?
I think it's easier now to write an ordinance that says Jake brakes are not allowed, because it's not now it's not a measure of noise, it's a measure of a braking method, and you're saying it's not allowed.
Well, no, you can't use them. As the state, they're not illegal to use within the state, but you can't use them in your town or in this road or what have you, okay? So, but it's a noise issue. You don't know they have it until there's the noise, right? So,
Or
I
they're
think that's...
using it, actually, because you don't have to use it.
That's correct.
I think that gentleman, if I may mistake, I think that gentleman did answer your question, Jeff.
He's here, by the way.
Yeah, he's right behind.
Oh, you're still here, oh, very good. Again, sir, what was the decibels at so many RPMs?
82 decibels at 4,500 RPM.
So we would have to outfit the police officers, or
With a-
somehow have,
With a sound meter and a
with a
procedure.
sound meter
right?
and,
You have to put, they're portable devices, you put one in each car.
And with a magneto-sensing tachometer, because not all motorcycles have tachometers.
I don't see this as it's written being enforceable. I know.
My whole issue 2 weeks ago was the enforceability of it.
Well, sometimes it's not a bad idea to put a law on the books to make a point. I mean, I don't think it always has to be enforceable.
I guess
but-
I don't see this as controlling, I'd prefer to see something that says, noise shall not exceed such and such, and that there's a measuring process, and whether or not we can fund and put up the money to enforce it at this point in time. At least there's a law that says keep the noise.
We have a noise meter. We have something.
Yeah.
The building inspector has something. Because I know that they've gone out.
No, but
Conference
I mean,
Street,
a police officer is
Go
gonna
ahead.
stop somebody, he's gonna have a portable device, he's gonna run the test right there. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna haul everyone back to the
No, I
police
know, I
station.
understand that we'll have something right now.
You know, the other thought that comes to mind here, in the example that you gave, it becomes one word against the other as well. When you're dealing with a noise level, you say, he made that noise. Okay, I heard him.
No, you have to measure it, you have to do the.
But no, you can measure it, but I'm saying, if someone accuses someone of making a noise, and you call the police, and they come over and say, oh, they said you made this noise. Well, I haven't been by my bike at all.
That's not gonna solve the
You
problem.
know.
I mean, it's gonna happen as a policeman's on duty,
Right.
and he happens, a bunch of bikes go by, and he hits a lot of.
That's the
noise,
only,
he stops
right,
them,
that's
and-
the only way it's
That's the
going
way
to
it
work,
has
yeah.
to be enforced, whatever the bylaw reads, that's the way it has to be enforced, like the speeding ticket. The officer has to witness it.
I saw your hand, Debbie. Yes, Debbie.
It doesn't sound to me as if this article works particularly well, and I can't envision a whole lot of people having a noise problem in the winter. Perhaps we should look at it.
Well, I think if you heard some of the people that, are complaining about the noise, is they live in an area where there's constant traffic.
I got cars on Old 62,
Yeah.
that motorcycle after that.
Well, I don't know what we're gonna solve here. So, I guess from a board point of view, do we wanna go with this language, or do we wanna change the language? or do we
I
wanna
don't disagree
throw the
that
thing
it should
out?
be something that's tied to the noise level, some sort of measurement. But again,
again, I never claimed to be, and still don't claim to be knowledgeable enough as far as, the labeling and
Well,
what it means and what it doesn't mean.
then it sounds like there's a state law already in place associated with noise.
But that does not preclude necessarily preclude local communities from setting a more stringent level, like a number of laws.
Yeah.
It's a benchmark. But again, I don't, so I think we should still have the placeholder here, and again, I think the article should be generic in nature, so that it gives us additional time to look at putting together a bylaw which would be more enforceable and achieve what we're looking to achieve, which is, measure the noise level and see if they're in compliance with whatever they're supposed to be in compliance with.
And giving us enough time so that
Give us
at
enough
town
time,
meeting we can
so
read.
that
and
there would be,
what-
there would be adequate notification to the town that we're talking about a zoning,
Okay.
the bylaws, general bylaws.
That's reasonable? Joe?
It is, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe, and then,
Oh.
go ahead, Joe.
Are we, I won't say we, is the suggestion being made that we can make a stricter noise, noise enforcement level than
I
the
think
state?
Steve-
I just said that there may very well be, I don't know.
I don't
This is-
think you can do that.
Okay. No,
I don't know. Maybe Sean?
We can, well, we
Okay,
can
we
find
can
out.
find out.
Surprised.
But again, we
Yeah,
need
because
to,
I don't
we
think you can-
need to quantify what the decibels are at a certain level that the gentleman over there pointed out.
Get a copy of
And
the
then,
state law,
and
right?
if it's, in excess of that, and again, I see no problem with being redundant with state law and putting it as only, in our general bylaws, even if it's redundant, to highlight the necessity to start enforcing it and checking.
Don, you were gonna say?
I don't agree. You got a state law that regulates, and says what the maximum decibel level is.
Just now, Marion.
Yeah.
And the police can enforce that law.
But again, there's still,
Why do you?
there may be, again, there may be something else that we can do that above and beyond that level. Obviously, we're not enforcing it now.
Why aren't we could enforce the state law. We should enforce the state law.
I just find it hard to believe that other communities are enacting general bylaw changes or putting general bylaws in place in their community when it's not necessary. But again, I don't claim to have the sufficient, again, I was hoping that, whether it be the police department or someone here locally within the administration would quantify and try and achieve the board's goal of.
Why don't we ask the police chief what the rules are?
But in the meantime, I think we could still have the placeholder here, make it more general, so that we're covered from the standpoint of adequate notification,
That's
in the form of the warrant
reasonable.
article,
This
and then
is
if we can't,
General, so that we have time to
and if we
get
don't,
an appropriate, make an appropriate decision in a
And-
town meeting, then we can insert appropriate words if it's general enough, and, or pass it over,
right,
We could spend 2 hours at town meeting.
You're right.
To debate something that's state law.
we'll have the answer. We'll have the answer. We'll have the answer.
Okay, where are we?
Board members, just real quick, in terms of the general wording, I would propose that would be the first paragraph, and the change would be simply stating to see if the town would vote to amend the Code of North Reading by adding a new chapter 122 noise, and then it would go all the way through the words or what action it would take in relation thereto, and that would be it in its entirety, which would give you the latitude that you would.
Yeah, just run it by town council, make sure that would be
Absolutely.
considered adequate notification. And in the meantime, if you could have the chief report to us what the general laws are, mass general laws are, and what we can or can't do. I just find it hard to believe that other communities are doing it, and
And
there's no need for it.
And FY '09 snow deficit, this is the portion of the snow deficit that isn't covered by the current town budget, which, as you recall, a certain portion of it is being covered by the town budget, the balance is going to be covered by additional funds. Any questions? Okay, and, next week we will review the detail on the budget amendment. right, capital plan.
Just maybe, something, just to give the board forewarning, I may be proposing for the board to, again, we have a bylaw that requires if you're gonna be naming something, some place or something, in honor of somebody.
Steve, I'm sorry.
I said if you're gonna be naming something in honor of somebody, it requires town meeting approval, so I may be, in the next few days, forwarding something to you individually about, a possible proposal for that, just for notification now. I don't have the details as of yet.
Okay. Capital,
Okay. If you refer to the sheet that's in your packet, labeled number 10, white copy, dated September.
oh, it was in the,
Yes, it was in your mail packet this evening.
yeah. Oh, yeah, fine. Right here. The other, the omnibus, I believe.
No, I actually wanted to print this on color paper, but it didn't work. Just to refer to the guidelines that were issued to department heads, they are attached here. Pay no attention to the date of September 1. My computer decided it would update it automatically, but we did issue guidelines to all of our department heads back in July. Capital budget proposals were due in on August 21st. You have a preliminary listing of what those are this evening. What we've done this year is recognition of the economic conditions facing North Reading. We've established some different priorities, and to restate what those priorities would be. Number one, preservation of long-term assets. And the guidelines state capital investment in existing infrastructure will continue to be a high priority to the extent projects were previously identified in the past capital improvement plan. This includes major planned maintenance and rehabilitation of existing buildings and public works infrastructure. We wanted to put in previously identified because everyone says that everything is the preservation of the long-term assets. Sometimes that's the challenge that we face when things get submitted. The second priority, and by second priority it doesn't mean it's of lesser importance, would be reduction of operating costs, and that would include projects that will reduce the operating costs rather than increase them, will be considered a high priority. For example, energy system projects such as the renovation of inefficient mechanical systems to reduce utility costs, will reduce overall utility maintenance costs going forward, will be considered a priority funding. Those projects that can demonstrate the shortest possible payback will give them priority over similar energy efficiency projects, and we did have several of those come forward. The third priority was to ensure the adequacy of water and wastewater systems. This would include any items that are necessary to serve the public. It would also include improvements necessary to provide for regulatory compliance in order to meet the town's current capacity demands. And then the final and fourth priority would be improving reliability of information technology, and that would identify capital improvement technologies which would result in the benefit to the public, and that these would be considered a high priority. Again, the emphasis here would be to identify capital expenditures that result in greater efficiencies and cost savings. So those were issued to department heads. And we have, the finance department and I have reviewed a capital proposal. Did meet with department heads to review their requests. And the town charter provides that the town administrator puts together a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is why we always take this document out 5 years so you can see what the total costs are going forward. Some of those projects may not be funded, but it's important to document what they would be. So what I've done is gone through, and if you kind of refer to the gray column, please allow me to go through some of these items. Before I go through that, what we'd like to do, going into town meeting, is identify which of these expenditures we can bond, and so those would be items that have a useful life. And that useful life would be something that we could borrow at least 5 years for. Typically, you wanna borrow at least 10 years, but you wanna establish items that you can borrow